Before we create these springs, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. I think first of all, I want to take these tires and wheels. Let's just select these. And we'll create a whole new scene collection for these guys. Let's right-click up here and click New Collection, and we'll have to reselect those to bring those in. So let's say Wheels, and then let's get all of these guys and bring them up into the Wheels scene collection right here. And also these pieces here, we created these to fill in on the front. Let's drag these up into the vehicle main as well. All right. So now we can go ahead and hide these. I'll just hide all of these here. Select that scene collection. And now let's think about how we want to create that spring. And if you haven't guessed, the modifiers are a pretty powerful part of Blender. And we can use another modifier that we haven't used yet to create these. And just like when we use the array modifier, we're going to need the actual thing we're going to apply the modifier to and an object to tell it how to modify, like the tire treads and the empty axis that we used in the center of the tire. So for this, we're going to use a screw modifier. And let's just create, first of all, a mesh circle. And this will be the actual round part that's spiraling up for our spring. And we need to change some of these here. We don't need 32 sides to this. Let's just do 12. And let's turn this. So I'm going to turn it in the x-axis. I'll press RX90. And then I'm going to just move this to the side here. Now this is the one we're going to apply the screw modifier to. We also need something for it to twist around. So let's create just an edge for that to happen. So I'll press Shift-A, and I'm going to create a polygon plane. And once again, I'm going to press RX90 to rotate that around the x-axis, and then we'll tab into Edit Mode. We'll select these 2 points, and we'll hit X and delete vertices. And that leaves us with just a line right there. So we'll tab back into Object Mode, and I want to move the origin to that geometry. So I'll go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. And now I want to put it right in the center here. So what I can do is press Shift-S, and I can snap the selection, that line, to the cursor. So I'll click this, and there we go. So now it's right in the center. So we have 2 objects now. One we're going to add the modifier to, and the other we're going to spin that circle around. So let's go ahead and add the modifier. Let's click Add Modifier and Screw right here. Now, just like before, we're going to take this axis field and click on the eyedropper, and then we'll click on this one right here. And you can see it did go around that object, but not quite in the way we'd want, right? So what let's do is let's change the axis from Z to Y. Now we're getting something a little bit more like we want. Let's now play with some of these options and see if we can get it to look a little bit more like a spring. So over here, we can click and drag on the screw field right here, and that'll open that up a bit like that. That's good. That's what we want, right? How about iterations? If we click and drag on that, sure enough, we get several iterations there. Now, we kind of want it to be a little bit thinner, right? It needs to be a thinner tube. So there are a couple of ways to do that. One, you can just, in object mode, hit S and scale this in, and that will make it thinner, but it'll also collapse it. Now, if we, however, tabbed into Edit Mode and selected that circle in Edit Mode and hit S, it'll reduce that radius, that circumference, I should say, individually, right? So we could maybe bring that down like, say, like this. And then we could take this, the screw field, and bring this down. Yeah, and then take the iterations up again. And we're beginning to get something kind of like that. So it just takes a little bit of playing with the settings here in the modifier to get it the way you want it. Let me tab back into Edit Mode here. Oh, I'm still there. Let me shrink that. Do I Need to shrink that down any? I'm not. Yeah, let's try that. And then I'm just holding the shift key while I click and drag. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that actually doesn't look too bad. All right, so let's tab back into object mode. And if we think that that's what we want, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more iteration onto there. There we go. Something like that, just in case I need a little bit more. Now I want to move this into place. I want to shrink it down, put it in place, but the origin of the object is right over here, and I don't think that would be real good to try and move it around. So let's move that origin to the 3D cursor first. Let's do that. All right, so now what let's do is bring that vehicle back, and maybe everything else. And I'm going to hit S and scale this down. And let's see if we can put this in place here. So we're looking at the front tire right here. Okay, so if we grab this and move it forward, that's not good. Look what happens. So the problem is we're still just moving that individual circle that we created originally, and we need to apply the modifier so we can move it around as a whole unit. So let's go ahead and click apply here. And now if we click and drag on the Y, we can move it all together there. All right, so I'm going to move it over here. And it looks like, it's really hard to tell here. Let's see if we can find another image. Let's look at this one. How does this look? Yeah, this looks a little bit better. So we can kind of see that spring is near the bottom of the wheel there. It's not exactly in the center. All right, so if we move it up, let's move it up to right about here. And now let's shrink it down, hit S and scale it down a bit. All right. I don't want it to overlap with the tire. Okay, and it looks like we're gonna have to move this in a bit. And that's fine. We're always going to have to be doing some sort of readjustment every time we add anything, and that's fine. That's to be expected. I'm going to put this right in the center here, and I'm going to hit S and scale this up so it goes, I think, to the top of the tire. We're pretty close to it. Let's try that. That looks a little too big. Scale it down a bit. All right. Now I'm going to grab this and just maybe grab these two faces here and pull them in for right now. Let's try this. So there we've got that shock absorber pretty much in place. That's not too bad. Maybe it could be a little bit smaller. Let's try it. Yeah, something like that. Okay. So now we need to begin connecting this up. We need to begin building the pieces that's going to kind of hold it in place. And once again, we don't want to fill this with a lot of detail. We just want to fill it with enough detail that kind of tricks the eye into thinking there's things going on down there, that we've got machinery and parts down there. So let's see what we can do by just kind of placing some of this. It looks like there's kind of this crossbar here. Let's work on that. Let's see if we can see that in the front view here. Yeah, it kind of looks like that's what it is right there. Yeah, and we have that going to the bottom of the spring. So let's try this. Let's add a cube here, and let's scale it down. And let's bring this up and maybe try and kind of put this right in here like this. All right, so I'm going to tab into edit mode and add an edge right down the center. And then I'm going to grab all the faces on one side and delete them. And then let's add a mirror modifier. There we go. I'll turn on clipping. And now if we take this and move it out, it'll also move on the other side as well. So let's kind of bring this up like this. And then I'm going to hit E and click and G and kind of bring this down like that. Maybe I'll scale it down a bit, S and Z, kind of like that. And then let's bring it straight out, E and X, and straight out like this. Let's try that. right, let's, we're going to have to bring that up. And that's going to go right in the middle of the tires, isn't it? Let me go to the side view and kind of place it in the center of the tires like this. All right. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so there's that first piece. I think that'll work pretty well. Now what let's do is let's get some of these other pieces in. Let's maybe add this plate right here. I'll press Shift A and let's create a polygon plane. And I'll scale it down and we'll move it forward up into here. And let's see if we can kind of get this. Oh, I don't know. Let's go to the front view. I can see it right there, I think. So let's just scale this in the X like this. And then let's go ahead and create this right here. So I think we just grab that edge, go EZ, and bring it up. Actually, I'll bring it up to right here, and then E and Z again, and we'll bring it up, and then scale it in so it goes like that. There we go. All right. Then let's go ahead and give it a little bit of thickness with the solidify. Apply the scale, even thickness, and I'll bring that down a bit like that. There we go. So we've got that, let's say right here. Okay. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just beginning to build piece by piece some parts under here and just see how much we need before we can just kind of fill in with blocks. And many of these blocks that are filling in are going to be a dark color, almost black, so they don't really draw attention to themselves. All right, so what let's do in the next video is let's continue building this area out. What I could probably do is go ahead and duplicate this and move it over. Let's do that. Shift D X, and I'll just drag this over, and we'll put it kind of in here like this. There we go. Let's just try that. All right. So in the next video, we'll build some more of these pieces and try and continue filling in.